Okay, so these are our notes on levels of organization for cells. So our first thing is our essential question. What are the different levels of organization for cells? So we're going to go through the different levels that cells can be in our bodies and any living things. So our first one would be, and I can't really read that, so hold on. Okay, that's better. So life is organized into different levels based upon size. So we go from small to large. So we're going to start with the small here in our bodies, the small cells, and we're going to see how those cells can work together to make something larger. Okay. So organisms and cells together. So some organisms that you might see are what we call unicellular. So this uni, means one. So anytime you see the prefix there in biology or science and you see uni, that just means that there's one. And this means they are only made of one cell. An example of that would be an amoeba. And bacteria, other things like yeast that you use in your bread. Then some organisms are multi, so like multicolored, this is multicellular, which means multi means many, so this means they are made of many cells. Some examples would be humans and trees. Okay. So unicellular organisms, the ones that just have one cell, have nothing but just a single cell all by itself. However, multicellular organisms have many more levels, as you can see here, of organization to make sure the whole body, here, us, can work correctly, even when it is doing many things at the same time. So we're going to we just talked about atoms and elements that are in our body. Those are all atoms, and they combine to make those macromolecules. And now we're going to talk about cells. When we begin, we just said we have unicellular and multicellular. Then we get to tissues, organs, and organ systems, and then the organism. Okay. So there are 5 levels of organization I just talked about in multicellular organisms. You have the first one, which is cells. Then the second one, which is tissues. Our third one is organs. Our fourth one be organ systems. And our fifth one would be organisms. And I'm going to go through each of these and give you some examples. We just went through cells. We have multicellular organisms, which we're going to really focus on. Unicellular do not have these levels of organization as they are just one cell. Okay, so the cell. The cell is the basic unit of life. And cells are specialized, and we'll talk more about specialization, by size and shape for the job they do, such as you will have lung cells, okay? You would have lung cells that would help you breathe, and you would have heart cells which help your heart work. And this little guy here is called a paramecium above, and it is made of only one cell, and it must perform all the jobs of organisms. So our unicellular organisms basically do everything just in one cell. These here is more of the cells like we have in us, and we're going to learn more about all these parts and what they do. But just understand that unicellular has to do everything together, but a multicellular organism has multiple cells to do multiple jobs and organized. Okay. So an example might be a skin cell. So you have a skin cell, but the skin cells are stacked up, and they function as the entire what we call epidermis, or your skin. The next level is tissues. Okay, so we have different tissues inside our body. We have what we call connective tissue, which connects our muscles to our bones. We have skeletal muscle. Those are our muscles that make everything move. We have epithelial tissue. That is just a fancy word for your skin. We have neurons, which is everything that works in our brain to make all of our nerves work. We have cardiac, which makes our heart system work. And then we have smooth muscle, which is more of like our organs. We don't use them to move. Skeletal muscle is what moves our skeleton. Smooth muscle is all of our other organs, okay? So tissues are made of the same type of cells. So each of these tissues has the same type of cell, and they're grouped together to do a specific job. So examples have 4 kinds of tissue, which we just talked about: epithelial, our skin, muscle, connective, and nerve. Then once we have our tissues, then that makes organs. So one example, of course, is our heart. And so organs are made up of different tissues that work together to do a job. So this might be all of our cardiac tissue here in our muscle, but we also have all of our aorta and our veins tissue that also work together for helping our heart work, okay? So an example, a heart is an organ, and it has different types of tissues here. So they have different types of cells that have different functions, and then they group together as different tissues, which then group together to make an entire organ. So notice we have some cardiac muscle here, but then we also have all of our veins and arterial tissues here that take our blood all over our bodies. Okay. Then our next step would be an organ system. So an organ system is a group of organs that work together. So some of our organ systems we have include circulatory. So what you just saw in the heart. So the heart is part of the circulatory system, but it also includes muscle. It includes your veins. It includes your aortas. It includes actually your lungs. Okay, all of those work together. All those tissues and all those organs all work together to make the entire circulatory system to carry air throughout our body. And then we have the reproductive system, we have the digestive system, we have our nervous system, and then finally our respiratory. Okay. Plant organ systems you might see are roots, stems, and leaves, and they are the entire transport system for a plant. They take water in and out and nutrients in and out. Okay. Then our next step, now that we have our organ systems, is an organism. So these are all the cells, tissues, organs, and organ systems working together to make a large organism. So an example, of course, would be us. Another example would be a plant, a tree, a frog. Those are all organisms. Okay, so that is our levels of organization notes. So go back and process your notes, highlight important parts, and underline vocabulary words or unknown words. I'll have to fix the formatting of that one. Then write connections in your left column, and then at the end, make sure you're writing a 3 to 5 sentence summary of your notes, and you can use the connections, the highlights, and the vocabulary. Remember, I'll be checking for a summary, highlights, and notes for your stamp. If you have any questions, please let me know.